American Life, released in 2003, is arguably Madonna's most divisive album of her long and storied career. Over the years, it has become a firm fan favourite, but at the time of release was considered a bit of a flop, by Madge's high standards anyway. So why exactly wasn't the album a commercial success? What does Mirwais, the producer of the record, think of the title track today? What other female singers did Madonna invite to perform with her at the 2003 VMAs? And is the album really a misunderstood work of genius or just a blemish on the Queen of Pop's CV? So many questions, let's find out. American Life, Madonna's 9th studio album, was released internationally on the 21st of April 2003. In the years preceding its release, Madge's music career had been riding high. Ray of Light in '98 had been heralded as a career best, and 2000's music was also considered a commercial and critical success. But this imperial phase was to come to an abrupt end with the release of American Life. The world had altered dramatically in the 2.5 years since music's release. American Life was made and released against the backdrop of a tense atmosphere in the US, a country still reeling from the September 11th attacks, and a government intent on going to war with Iraq. The American administration based their justification for the war on the premise that Iraq held weapons of mass destruction, which ultimately was proven to be false. Despite mass demonstrations being held all around the world and countries including France, Germany and Canada voicing their opposition, American troops and their allies invaded Iraq on the 20th of March 2003. Understandably, there was a highly charged atmosphere in the US at the time. When lead singer Natalie Maines of country group The Dixie Chicks spoke out against the war, the trio were met with a huge backlash, with American radio banning their songs and the group losing lucrative sponsorship deals. Their record and ticket sales also suffered. In terms of popular culture in '03, fame was becoming ever more democratized with the advent of reality TV shows, which were fast becoming a mainstay of TV programming, most notably the singing contest American Idol, which shockingly is still going. And there was also plenty of change on the music scene. Pop music had evolved from a teen sound at the beginning of the millennium to be more hip-hop and rock influenced. Ashanti, Nelly and 50 Cent were dominating the charts at the time, along with rockier sounds such as Avril Lavigne, Nickelback and The Calling, amongst many others. So it was amidst all these political and cultural developments that American Life was made. Recording started in late '01 but was paused so Madonna could travel to Malta with her hubby at the time and film the epic turkey that was Swept Away. Recording was also put on hold again in spring '02 so Madge could star in Up for Grabs in London's West End. Mirwais, who worked extensively on 2000's music, was back on board as a producer, and the two continued on with a cyber folktronica sound in the vein of Don't Tell Me. Mirwais was famous for his glitchy synths, beats that keep cutting, and a very generous use of vocoder. Madonna has said in interviews at the time that the French producer was feeling very intellectual and philosophical, and that clearly influenced the moody nature of the songs. The proposed album title was the Hebrew phrase Ein Sof, meaning endlessness. According to Lucy O'Brien's biography of the superstar, the photo shoot for the album and the accompanying graphic design work cost a whopping $400,000. The photography was done by famed British fashion photographer Craig MacDean, and the cover was of course based on the 1960s image of Che Guevara. And as part of the album's promo, Madge also appeared in Will and Grace at the time of the album's release to maximize exposure. And so too the title track from the album, which upon its release was of course widely panned by critics. And time doesn't seem to have endeared people to the song either. To this day, it tends to feature at the lower end of lists of Madonna's best singles. Ow. Whilst the song performed decently around the world, it stalled at number 37 in the US and became Madge's lowest charting lead single of her career, with the exception of her debut. Of course, the tense atmosphere in America and word that the video was going to be an anti-war protest probably didn't help its chances either. In an interview with Rolling Stone from 2023, Mirwais talked about how the song came about and how the original demo was a track entitled Modern Life, which had been performed by him. He also said that he wrote the first verse and chorus, but then Madge and him struggled for almost 18 months to complete the final song, which some might interpret as a sign it just wasn't working. In the interview, he also states that he still thinks the song is, in his words, a brilliant piece of art. In the interview, Mirwais also stated that he had reservations about American Life being the first single, and that Madge should have started with a more accessible song, but it was the Queen who ultimately made the call. And the part of the song which attracted the most derision was, of course, that rap. But it's not as if Madge hadn't rapped before. She pulled it off very successfully on Vogue, but I think everyone will agree that that was a far superior song, and the subject matter was considerably lighter. But American Life, with its rhymes of latte and shawty and Mini Cooper with super duper, is easy to see why the rap elicits such strong feelings of cringe. In the interview with Rolling Stone from 2023, Mirwais had this to say about the infamous rap. The funny thing about the rap is that people mocked her because they thought she couldn't rap properly. I don't agree at all. No one understood that we decided to keep it that way. Critics were very naive to think her performance couldn't have simply been fixed in the studio. We kept the rap with that stiff and robotic flow and her hysterical delivery. It was self-mockery, a statement of her own status, and beyond all, a mockery of the music cliches of that time. It was ironic. The song was performed on the following year's Reinvention tour and seemed to be ignored for years by Madge until she gave it another outing on 2020's Madame X tour. It was also a notable absence from her 2009 Greatest Hits compilation Celebration. I know I might be in the minority, but I actually really like the breakdown chorus with the acoustic guitar in the background. If the verses had been written differently and had been more melodically rhythmic, I think it would have contrasted really nice with the chorus, and I probably would have gotten rid of the rap altogether. But coulda, woulda, shoulda, and all that. And perhaps the rap was inspired by Eminem, who she had spoken very positively of at the time. She even wrote a letter to the LA Times defending his work in 2001, not long before starting work on American Life. And she also said in interviews years later that she had asked him to collaborate with her, but he declined the offer. Maybe that's who she had in mind for the rap in the first place. Who knows? Madonna is almost as famous for being a video artist as she is for being a music artist, and was instrumental in pioneering the format in the early 80s. And if ever there was a song that needed a video, it was American Life. But unfortunately, it was not meant to be. The video was shot over 3 days in Los Angeles during the first week of February. Long-term collaborator Jonas Aukerland was directing it, and it was his concept to go with the fashion show theme. In the interview with Rolling Stone in 2023, Jamie King, the choreographer of the video, said that for the scene with the knife in the toilet cubicle, Madge had spent days practicing it on cardboard to the timing of the music. Over the next few weeks, whilst the video was in post-production, information started to leak to the media that the video would feature images of the horrors of war. And Madonna was already being accused of being anti-American, even before the video premiered. And with such a highly charged atmosphere in the country, any opposition to the war was deemed to be unpatriotic. And on the 1st of April, Madonna reluctantly withdrew the video. She was understandably afraid of the backlash that was likely to ensue. Instead, a makeshift promo was put together of the superstar lip-syncing the song with flag graphics including Palestine, Greenland and Puerto Rico in the background. And with no proper video to launch the song, the whole project undoubtedly suffered. Right from the very beginning of her career, Madonna had seemed to thrive on shocking people. After all, this was a woman who danced in front of burning crosses and hitchhiked naked on a Miami street, and it seemed uncharacteristic of her to compromise her artistic expression. But while she hadn't been afraid to tackle hot button topics such as sex and religion in the past, she hadn't previously broached something as purely political as war. And with many Americans sending off family members to war at the time, she knew she was heading into very dangerous territory with the video. In an interview with Attitude from 05, Madge had this to say about why she pulled the video. "I did it because I didn't want people throwing rocks at my children on the way to school. I did it for them, not for me. There's a lynch mob mentality that goes on. If you're one person on your own and you have no responsibility for people around you, then that's one thing. But I had to think about the bigger picture, my kids basically. Hollywood, the most pop song on the album, would probably have been a better choice as a lead single than American Life. It failed to reach the Billboard Hot 100 upon its release, making it the first time one of Madonna's singles didn't make the American charts. Unfortunately, there was more bad news for Madge, this time with the video, which had been directed by her long-term collaborator Jean-Baptiste Mondino. After its release, the family of French photographer Guy Bourdin, whose work was said to have inspired the promo, filed a lawsuit against Madonna and Mondino for copyright infringement. The Queen of Pop settled out of court and was rumoured to have paid the Bourdin estate in the region of £600,000. Mondino and Madonna haven't worked together since, which is a real shame as they had done so much incredible work together over the years. With the American Life campaign running out of steam so soon after its release, Madonna resorted to drastic measures. And despite sticking to the line over the years that so much of what she does is spontaneous and not all that thought out, I simply do not believe her. The performance for the 03 VMAs with Britters and Aguilera was obviously carefully planned to ensure she grabbed headlines the world over and to keep Madonna's name at the forefront of pop culture. The performance with its bridal themes was of course an homage to her legendary Like a Virgin performance 20 years earlier. Jennifer Lopez and Pink have both said in interviews that they were asked to partake in the performance, but they had other commitments at the time. Pink has also said that Gwen Stefani was another singer asked to be a part of it. And off the back of the performance, Madge featured on Britter's single at the time, Me Against the Music. But it wasn't really a collaboration in the truest sense, her vocals just seemed to be tagged on towards the end. Nothing Fails, which in its demo form was called You Silly Thing, was written by Guy Sigsworth and mid-2000s singer Jem. Guy had written it for his wife and Madge reworked parts of the song and changed the title. American radio ignored the track and it probably wasn't helped by the fact that there was no video. And it was probably also overshadowed by Me Against the Music, which was released at the same time. In my humble opinion, Nothing Fails is by far the best song on the album, and if it had received the video treatment and had been released in the UK, it could have reversed the album's fortunes. I also think it would have been a far better choice as a second single than Hollywood and would have had much broader appeal. It could have shifted the focus from the whole American life spiel and back onto good quality classic songwriting, which in fact makes up the majority of the album. And I think it's testament to the strength of the song that it reached #1 in Spain and top 10 in Canada and Italy without a video. Love Profusion, released a few weeks later, did however get a promo, directed by famed French movie director Luc Besson. The song and part of the video were also used for an Estee Lauder fragrance commercial at the time. But despite the brand tie-in and the eye-catching music video, Love Profusion also missed the Billboard Hot 100. American radio is notoriously corporate and the ownership is greatly centralized, and once they decide they're not interested in an artist or their album, that seems to be it. At least today with streaming, an artist's fan base can have greater influence over the charts. And of course, the other single from that era was Die Another Day, which was sort of tagged on at the end of the record and was the only American hit from the album. And whilst I was researching for this video, I was very surprised to find out the promo is the second most expensive music video of all time. $6 million was spent on it, which must have been mostly for all of the fancy special effects. But I don't think Madge got value for money. Don't get me wrong, I know it doesn't look like a student production, but I don't think it looks all that expensive either. Elton John, who has long had a bee in his bonnet about the Queen of Pop, called it the worst Bond song ever. The song was a big hit in a number of countries and also got nominated for a Golden Globe. Madonna even had a small part in Die Another Day, playing Verity, a mysterious fencing instructor, a performance for which she won the Golden Raspberry for Worst Supporting Actress in 2003, even though she was barely in it for 2 minutes. Whilst it got off to a strong start commercially, reaching #1 in the UK and US, American Life became Madonna's lowest selling album at the time. And I don't think it's an exaggeration to say it flopped in America, but it was viewed much more favourably internationally, where it did at least yield some hit singles. Once Madonna's core fans had bought it, it slipped quickly out of the charts. And whilst critics weren't particularly kind to it at the time, it has retrospectively been viewed more favourably, and many fans consider it to be one of their favourite Madonna albums. So why exactly didn't it work out commercially? Well, the main theme of the album was confused, and the whole money won't make you happy spiel didn't exactly wash well with the general public. Whilst the video, album cover and typography all followed a war theme, she doesn't actually address war on the songs at all. This is definitely not a protest record. Beyond the first 3 songs, which critique American culture and our feelings of disillusionment with celebrity and the American dream, the other 8 songs are more about her psychoanalyzing herself and her love for her then hubby Guy Ritchie. So in some ways the marketing felt misleading. In all the interviews for the record, Madge bleated endlessly about how fame and wealth didn't bring happiness. But like all rich and famous people who propagate this message, none of them are exactly willing to turn their backs on it either. The message rang hollow from somebody who had created great pop art over the years, but had also rode the wave of celebrity throughout their career and used and manipulated it to help build their empire. The average person simply can't relate to rich people feeling disillusioned with their success or having to choose a stage name. Like, seriously, go find a real problem. It's not as if a whole lot of great art hasn't been created from the whole "the American dream is empty" idea. The Great Gatsby, Death of a Salesman, for example, but unfortunately, American life doesn't fall into that category. Madonna certainly hadn't abandoned her capitalist intentions. Despite her epiphany, she still wanted to sell as many records and concert tickets as she could. And in no time at all, Madge was back to signing big money deals and as hellbent as ever on success. And I also think Mirwais is a far better producer than he is a songwriter. I've never really been a fan of his songwriting, with the exception of Music, which in my humble opinion is a classic Madonna song. And in my humble opinion, you need to approach the album with an open mind and not expecting a classic Madonna pop era. The music is darker and much more downbeat than what she normally does. There's no floor filler moments like a ray of light or a music. But once you get past all of that and into the heart of the record, there is some really great classic songwriting, especially on tracks such as Love Profusion, Intervention, Easy Ride, and of course the aforementioned Nothing Fails. Madonna simply wouldn't be Madonna without her determination to keep experimenting, growing, pushing forward, and using her voice, even if it doesn't always go exactly to plan. Madonna's had a number of classic eras throughout her career, and if you'd like to learn more about them, check out these videos in this playlist. And if you got value from this video, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.